stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Evening, everyone. All council members are present and accounted for. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes for March the 6th, March 11th, regular meetings, and March 6th closed session. Anyone care to make a motion to approve one or all sets of those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. So carried. Ask the council if there's any conflicts of interest that appear in tonight's agenda.
No, sir.
No, sir.
We have for adoption tonight the following ordinances and resolutions. First of all is Ordinance 02, 2019, fiscal year 2020 budget ordinance. Anyone care to make a motion to approve that ordinance?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I might have the floor a minute. I wanted to discuss, again, a point made on Wednesday at the workshop. The citizen was in the well and was discussing the O'Brien Street bridge that's in this budget. And so I had a chance to go out and look at the gully there and look at that bridge. And I'm concerned that we fund so much of the cost of that O'Brien Street bridge. Nearly $1 million is spent on it. And I drove around, and the time that it takes to drive around that is less than 2 minutes, and I talked to members of the fire company about that. And so I don't think that the budget should include $1 million spending on that bridge, since the O'Brien Street goes out now through the new development of Meats Crossing and has 2 entrances from 2 different sides. And then the second thing that gives me pause about the budget we're passing now, the 2020 budget, is that I've been attempting to get the council to adopt a reduction in the sewer rate, which I think is appropriate. I was concerned to read the Taneytown record. It says here, again, this year, our tax rate will remain the same. I have never submitted a budget to the council that's called for a tax increase. And then it says that the council has decided to leave the rates the same. Well, that's what we're deciding tonight. So I don't think it's accurate that we've decided. The proposal's before us for a vote tonight, so that should not be in the paper that we did that. And I was concerned to read that. I don't think I can, if we don't adopt a reduction in the sewer rate, I don't think I can approve and include $1 million of spending that I don't think we need. I don't think I can vote for the budget tonight.
All right, anyone else have any comments on the budget?
Mr. Mayor, can we get clarification on the actual cost of the O'Brien? I don't believe it's $1 million. Mr. Wyperk, do you have a little better information there?
CIP, but that starts.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think some of the costs do come from the county and some from the city, so I think that's worth discussing.
Right, the county's covering a good portion of that project as a part of what they're doing, but our portion is really only the actual bridge covering and the roadway to connect. It's not $1 million.
And then to that point, though, at the same time, Councilman Frazier, we are completing this bridge for a number of other reasons, in addition to the sense that emergency response is going to be quicker. And in addition to that, there are, we've dealt with roads in the past to developments in other places that were never completed. And we have residents who question us all the time, well, why do we have a road that is here but goes to nowhere? Why has this road never been completed? And so we don't want to leave a bridge or a road that's uncompleted for the next 20 or 30 years. If we have the ability to tackle the project now, we should.
So with the opportunity from the
And
county, it's an appropriate
this was
time.
originally planned for a completed structure, so it's just fulfilling plans that we had promised years ago.
The Roberts Mill was the 470,553 under capital outlay.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else have any questions regarding the budget? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like
I
sign.
have to vote against the budget.
Okay, and next is ordinance 03-2019, Chapter 94, installation and operation of small wireless telecommunication facilities in the public right-of-ways. Anyone care to make a motion to approve this ordinance?
So,
Well, I'll second that then.
That was enthusiastic.
Well, they can fight over the motion.
Is there any questions to ask about that before we ask for a vote?
I have, Mr. Mayor, I talked to a number of people that were concerned about, I was concerned about this proposal that came before the council, and I'm not prepared to vote for it at this time. There's so many concerns about this piece of legislation, and
Are you willing to share those concerns with us before we have the vote?
I just, a lot of people concerned about it. I was concerned about the size of it. It's too much power given to the locality. I don't like the sound of.
Power should
finding-
rest in the multinational corporations, is that what you're saying?
I say the alternative is that we give it all to federal government or the companies putting them in.
The wireless company.
Are you saying it's too much protection for our residents?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying,
Sounds like that's what you're saying.
I think that the 5G technology, it could be an impediment to its development, and I'm concerned about that. But I'm also concerned about the number of people that call me and ask me to vote against this.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments regarding 03-2019? I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to vote against that.
Okay, ordinance 04-2019, fiscal year 2019-20 water sewer rate. Care to make a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
second?
Any discussion?
Yes, one thing before you vote, this is a flyer that I produced when they shifted $329,000 from the general fund into the sewer fund and raised sewer rates, and I tried to mention that on Wednesday in the last two meetings. A third of that has come back to the general fund, and that at least should be a minimum of 3% reduction this year.
Well, thank you for that, but as
That's
typical,
$127,000, I think, is coming back into the general fund in the budget I studied. I spent 30 hours studying it, and I think that it is...
But see, you're wrong. We've been over and over and over in this ever since the budget workshop, and you simply just don't understand the process.
I'm trying to figure out how the sewer rate got from the rate that I held up in the sheet up to the higher rate, and one of the ways was when we did this back in the day and shifted $329,000 to the sewer fund and salaries and things, and they've been correctly brought back into the general fund.
Okay, anybody else have any comments regarding the water and sewer rate? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
I'm opposed. I think that this is the year for reduction in the sewer rate.
Next is ordinance 05-2019, the fiscal year 2019-20 tax rate. Anyone care to make a motion to approve the tax rate?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, I warned the town council about a coming increase in the assessments that's coming, and then we had a special program about that in Taneytown. There's a lot of concern about the citizens, and I think that we ought to at least give a penny back to the citizens in this year's property tax rate because of the real increase in assessments that's going to happen next year or the year after that.
Well, if the increases are happening next year, then we can address it next year in that budget.
I think that we're going to have, my property tax is very high. My property tax is very high.
And I'm sorry to hear that.
And since we do have surpluses in these accounts, I think we can refund a penny, at least a penny, like I discussed on Wednesday. And I'm sorry. that I
Well,
didn't get
again,
support for that.
Councilman, we've talked over and over again how over the course of the recession, we have dug deeply into the reserves to meet our needs of our citizens, and how that fund needs to be replenished. We've been stellar in maintaining the tax rate, no increase, over the worst recession since the Great Depression. And I think it's commendable to this council and councils before us to have the foresight to put money into plan for our future and not give it back the minute there was a surplus.
Well, did you know that we're not holding the constant yield rate today when we pass this rate, that we actually collect about between $30,000 and $40,000 more this year than last year just by holding the same rate?
$44,000, but yes, that's correct.
$44,000. That's a real increase in the payment of taxes by property owners in
Well,
town.
again, this is due to new folks moving into town. It's not due to folks that are already here. So I would think that logic would dictate that the folks that move into town would be willing and understanding about paying for services they receive, along with the other residents. Why should the other residents subsidize new residents? Doesn't make any sense to me.
So you understand that by having more residents in, our cost for services will increase. So now we're expecting them to also put into the kitty, if you will, by paying their taxes. If we follow, okay, that's fine, you can, but if we follow the state constant yield each year, we're expected to provide more services for the same amount of money to more residents, and that doesn't even make sense to me. So I'm not sure how you can see it differently.
Well, because it actually does raise the taxes $44,000.
No, it does not.
Does
Yes,
not.
sure it does.
Absolutely
Taxes
not.
are not increasing.
When it's said here in the paper that we've never submitted a budget that calls for a tax increase, this budget calls for a tax increase above the constant yield.
Councilman
So it's just
Frazier,
not
what
accurate.
was the tax rate last year?
I don't know the exact rate. I could get it
Councilman
for you.
Wance, can you tell us what the tax rate was last year? It was 37 cents.
37 cents.
What is it this year?
37 cents, my good
37
friend.
Now, there's something else I'd like to take issue with here. You said a few minutes ago you'd like to cut that rate by, I think you said a penny?
I had
Right.
given examples how the county had done that, 2 cents one year, 3 cents one year because of constant yield considerations and a penny another year, and I think that this is the year to do that.
But you're calling
There's
for
not
one
much interest in that.
See, we're not
You're
the
calling for
county.
1 cent reduction. Why aren't you calling for 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 cents?
If you had seconded, I'd call for 2 cents.
Or
Well, no,
50%.
50%.
Sake of
The reason
argument.
why I'm bringing this up is, right, I wasn't going to say
35 would
anything,
be
but
okay
I've gotten
with
to
me.
the point where something's got to be said. 2 years ago, when we were planning on cutting water and sewer rates by 3% each, you said that was a slap in the face of the voters of town that we were doing so little to cut the rates. It ended up being that we were able to cut each of the rates by 5%, which is more than we had anticipated. We've been able to keep that same lower rate for the past 2 years. This is the third year we'll be keeping it. As the mayor and Councilman Wance have said, the tax rate has stayed the same for years, right? So now all of a sudden, what was a slap in the face of the voters 2 years ago is suddenly the best plan ever this year, that you're going to cut the tax rate by a penny?
The real tax rate could be cut by 2 cents. If you'd have seconded a motion, but there I have a motion on the table, so I
No,
can't
the
do that.
concern is with the theatrics of this, Councilman. You made a claim 2 years ago that a modest reduction of water and sewer rates was a slap in the face of the voters of this town, and this year you're trumpeting a 1 penny decrease in property taxes is like the greatest thing ever.
Well,
And
I
I guess the
regret having
concern
said
here is
that.
that there's
That's
a
a-
lack of consistency in your methodology.
No, it's
Just
not inconsistent.
For the sake of clarification, a 1 penny rate in the tax rate amounts to a little over $50,000. So if you take $50,000 and divide it by 7,000 people,
I think it's more
that
than
gives
that.
you what kind of savings you'd be talking
I
about.
feel like it would be more than that. Mr.
Insignificant.
Mayor.
Anyway,
Commissioner Rothschild's own her personal taxes went up.
Yeah, we can-
Assessments went up by $100,000 with this tax increase that is coming through assessments next year.
I'm glad he's doing his part.
$100,000. That's real pain for property owners.
But that
Okay,
hasn't-
let's
It's
call for
coming,
the
and I'm
question
warning you,
here.
it's coming.
Everyone in favor of ordinance 06, 2019, the fiscal year?
No, 5.
Tax, or excuse me,
05.
05, 2019 fiscal year tax rate, say aye.
Aye.
And
To
opposed?
vote against that. We should have at least a penny reduction this year.
All right, next is ordinance 2019, the fiscal year operating budget amendment number 3, emergency adoption of section C-209B of the City of Taneytown Charter and Code.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, I believe we need 2 motions for this, one for the suspension of the rules, and then a second one for the actual amendment.
All right. Correct. I'll call first for the, this is an emergency adoption, so I need a motion to suspend the rules for an emergency adoption of ordinance 06, 2019 fiscal year operating budget amendment number 3.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion about that motion? Fine, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right, now I'll ask for the question. Is there anyone has any questions on ordinance 06, 2019? Well, first I'll need a motion to approve, or make a motion to approve and second,
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Now, is there any questions on that operating and budget amendment? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. So carried. Next is Resolution 2019-04, allocation for the water, April of 2019. Anyone care to make a motion for the water allocation?
So moved.
And a second.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay. Next is Resolution 2019-05, Marion City Council salary increase. Anyone care to make a motion for that?
So moved.
And a second. Is there a discussion?
Did we get any clarification from my question Wednesday night regarding who this will apply to come July?
No, just more confusion since that time. So we're still going to work that out between now and July.
What is the confusion? Can you give us a hint again? I'm not sure I remember it.
The charter has a provision that deals with council member and councils.
Right.
And so if you interpret it one way, it doesn't apply to the council members who are incumbents. If you interpret it as a council as a whole, then it doesn't matter. And then the entire charter provision as it relates to the Maryland Constitution and how it's been determined about sitting elected officials giving salary increases. Because typically, sitting elected officials, you all are out together, not staggered terms. So you vote and then it takes effect, no problem. But with staggered terms, how has that been interpreted? And so there's 2 Attorney General's opinions that are being tracked down to find that out. So we will find that out before July.
So it's a colloquy follow-up. So it would affect people even after the election that's coming on May the 6th?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
That's what it would, I mean, there's no question. I don't
Only
think
if-
anybody has a question that any newly elected person would get the advantage of the new salary in July. The question is, are the incumbents going to get the advantage of the new salary in July?
Oh, okay.
I just want to make sure we're in line with our charter, because it does outline it, but obviously there's some fogginess regarding that.
Right.
So if there,
right, well,
if there's, well, Mr. Mayor, if I just, real quick, if there is an issue going forward, and let's just say for the sake of argument that we don't have this figured out by July, is it possible that, let's say, the incumbents could go without the salary increase until a determination is made, and then when the determination is made, any pay that was not received during the time the decision was being determined will come back to us as back pay?
Yes, that's an option, but we're going to have an answer by then.
Okay.
They'll
We
have
couldn't
to
do it
figure
in 2 days, but we'll definitely get it done in 2 months.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
I'm opposed to that.
Okay, next we have the city manager's report. Jim, what do you have for us tonight?
Just a quick follow-up to my comments Wednesday with regard to trash collection. Thank you. The hauler is going to start tagging recycling bins that have plastic bags in them that they observe when they're collecting trash. So you may hear complaints or calls or see, social media chatter about
Well, that'll be a big help.
recycling not being picked up. But the hauler is intending to, not collect the ones where they can see there's plastic bags mixed in the recyclables. And they are intending to tag those cans. So the residents should be aware why their recycling wasn't picked up, but we still expect there to be some fallout from that. So just a heads up.
Right?
Anything else, Jim?
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Jim? Any question on the departmental reports that may have come up since last Wednesday? Jay, do you have anything for us on the legal report?
Yeah, I do have a new item for you, and this, it's just a limited item. I think we could talk about the big scope of these things, but it deals with our ongoing project with the police department. And we're not prepared to give out any findings or anything. That process is still going on. But as you recall, one of the directives we have was to deal with the evidence room and the police property issue. And so in dealing with that, we found out that I don't think anything's ever been thrown away at the police department ever. I mean, there are just rooms down there full of things. An example could be like a box full of radar guns that look like they should be off the set of the Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, they're 30 years old, 40 years old, and they're just in a box in the way.
Wow.
Well, donate those to the History Museum then.
Well, there are, I
Shotgun?
wonder what to do with, I mean, and that would be one box, but imagine everything else. And the same is similar with the evidence room, and while we're still going on with our evidence audit and things like that, there are things in the evidence room that are from cases that are from years ago that have been closed and need to be disposed of. And I can give you some examples of that. There was a wok, a frying pan, an empty bottle of Jack Daniels, an empty pack of cigarettes. I mean, those are all there from cases that were 15 years old that are they just are, and there are other things that obviously would have value. So what we need to come up with, because we don't have that at the police department, is basically a property disposal policy of how we deal with that. And we need it on an interim basis so that we could basically deal with going through this audit and going through the cleanup. And once we get the interim policy in place, then when we come up with our new policies for evidence going forward, it'll be taken care of in a more succinct way. So that's what we need to do, and we're not prepared to offer anything to the council, and probably it isn't really up to the council to decide in itself. This should probably be something from the police policy range, which you would bless overall, if you follow what I'm saying. So what I want your blessing to do is to allow the creation of a property disposal policy that's going to be agreed upon by the city manager, the mayor, and the acting chief. And once the three of them come up with it, then we can move forward. And you understand the reason why is we can't finish this audit unless we start getting rid of things. So if you're okay with that, that's what we would like to do, and then we can continue on our schedule of progress.
That's fine.
I agree with that.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that the town look into the shotgun that was taken from my 211 East Baltimore property and never returned to me. I've approached Chief Tyler many times at social events and asked for my shotgun back, and they've never given me the shotgun back. And so it's time for the police to give back the shotgun if it's some of this leftover things from old cases. They said they were going to take it for just a day to run the serial number. When we went to get it the next Monday, they never returned it, and they've never returned it to this day.
Mr. Mayor, I asked you disregard the motion on the floor because that's not in the purview of the city council.
Well, I'd like the
I didn't
council to
plan
take
it.
seriously. I was laughed at when I brought it up last time, but I've talked to other people in town that had things stolen from the property.
Councilman, if you just listen to what our attorney said, you know we're developing a policy to return those items which are held as evidence or held, period, by the police department, to return them to their rightful owners. Now, as soon as we're able to get that policy done, which I hopefully will be in a few a little while, we'll be able to act on that. But just arbitrarily start passing out items that people say they want back without some type of policy probably isn't prudent. So let's
And Mr.
wait
Mayor,
until we get the
I'd like the
policy
council to not,
established, and then
to
we'll go.
not just laugh at me when I talk about the fact they took
I
my
think
shotgun.
the issue
But
that you
actually
have,
take a position to make the police department give it back to you.
here's the problem, Councilman. What you're doing now is you're using your position on the council to get something personal done, to get your property back from the police department, when we have an entire evidence room of property that has to be gone through and dealt
I
with.
want to know where the ammunition is too,
So,
that was discussed in that letter.
You keep going through and adding things to this. It's part of a process, and what I'm saying is the motion you've made to get your shotgun back is inappropriate because it takes your position there and say, do this for me. When what I'm trying to tell the council and what the mayor reiterated is that we're coming up with a policy to deal with everybody's property. And if your property's down there, it will be one of the things that gets addressed.
Well, I didn't appreciate the fact that I was laughed at when I brought this up before by the council.
I think it's
And I
the-
made it in the form of a motion to see if they were serious about returning property that other people in town said is missing from the property room.
I think the problem
Since
you're-
this
you're-
happened, I've had a lot of people come to me and talk about things that they were stolen from the
I
property.
think the problem that you have is the forum that you're doing it, in that you're bringing up your personal issue.
No, I'm
city
talking about
business.
other people I've
And if
talked.
other people haven't, then you should write to the city and tell us what the other people's issues are. It would help us deliver.
I think I have the liberty to do that, but I think that you ought to know that this is a big deal, that the property room was not well maintained.
Which is
don't
why
know
there's
that
an
for either,
audit that's
but-
being conducted, Councilman. Let's just go back to the issue of your shotgun, right? You said that it was taken from you, it was supposed to be returned in a day or something. You do not know the reason why it was not returned to you, do you? I don't. I don't think Jay does. I don't think anybody does.
I
And so
do, but.
you have to let
You
the
wonder.
you have to let the process follow its course. You can't interrupt the process. You can't interject your own personal desires into it. This is an objective process that's going on, and you have to let it take its course.
I'm in favor of auditing the property.
That's what's going on.
That's all we need to know.
We've been doing that for the last several weeks already. Anyway,
The things were in Fairfield, Pennsylvania, that should have been in the property room.
what else?
I just need your consensus to do that, and I believe that I have it unless anybody's objecting, and that's what we're going to come up with for our property disposal policy.
I think that's a good thing.
And that's all I have for you tonight.
Okay. Any questions for Jay?
No, sir.
Does that inform, do we have to vote on that, about going forward with an audit?
No, it was consensus, sir.
We're already doing it. Did that. Been done. Next is, under new business, we have the monthly financial report. Someone like to make a motion to approve the monthly financial report?
So moved.
There's second.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Next, we have the accounts payable. Someone care to make a motion to approve the accounts payable as presented?
So moved?
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a question on page 6 I'd like to ask. I don't recognize the 311 company, Vass Payne LLC, for $8,007. I tried, it says annual service fee. Maybe I can get some clarification about what that is, because I researched it through the other packets that I have in a file cabinet, and I couldn't find this payment, if it's an annual fee, before, but maybe my search was not exhaustive. Do you know what that is?
That's our telephone service provider.
Okay.
We
I didn't know-
switched to voice over internet protocol
It's
this
a
year.
new name for me. I had another question also on page 8 of the accounts payable. It says Nancy McCormick has bought a table of tickets for a Economic Outlook breakfast for $250. Has this event happened already?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Did you all go to this event?
I attended.
There's 10 tickets were bought with town money, and I think I missed that. Also wanted to ask why on page 9 we're paying $5,725.90 to Meads Crossing Development. I don't know why. Are we paying back some sort of a like a bond? It's too early to do that.
RK&K is the city's construction inspector, So we pay RK&K, and then Meads Crossing reimburses us for the cost
Okay, so this is a payment to the inspector.
to the inspector.
Right, if you look on the payee, it says RK&K. And the
It does say
reason is-
RK&K, yes.
Right.
All right, those are the questions I have. Thank you,
All
Mr.
right,
Mayor.
any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay. Next, we have ratification of land purchase contract.
So I had handed out the salient terms of the contract. You're all very familiar because we've talked about it for several months and theory. And so what we need tonight is just a vote, motion and a vote to ratify the contract. We'll be going to settlement this week.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. So carried. I have one more item for new business, if I could. We're short a member of the Ethics Committee. I'd like to propose Priscilla Shope as the member of that Ethics Committee. Anybody
What,
object to that?
I didn't hear you.
Priscilla Shope as the member of the Ethics
Okay,
Committee.
thank you for repeating that.
Member short. All right. By consensus, I guess that's all right, or do I need a motion?
I think you're going to need an
That needs a
actual vote.
vote.
All right,
So moved.
a second?
Second.
All in favor, say, any discussion?
I don't know this person. I'm not,
Downtown business owner.
I believe she has served on boards previously, if I'm correct.
Priscilla.
She was formerly on the election board. She's
That's
stepped
right.
down from the election board.
All right, I recognize that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, so carried. Thank you. Council member reports. Councilman Frazier, do you have anything for us tonight?
Yes, I was really delighted to see the sun break forth on Saturday morning at the opening of the baseball season in Taneytown. I missed the Oriole opening game this year. I'd love to go to that, but the Yankees beat the O's 8-4, so it probably wasn't too bad to miss that, but it was just as much fun to see all the young people, and very proud of the coaches we've met here over my 4 years as being the Rex and Parks liaison. These coaches have come to many meetings, and their teams were all there. It was delightful to see, and it was also delightful to attend yesterday the excellent ceremony for the opening of the History Museum. I saw you all there, and I was really pleased that they've chosen to accent and emphasize the World War II memorabilia. I brought along 2 folders, one of my grandfather's World War I service, and the other of my father's service. He had to lie about his age to get into the Navy. He changed an 8 to a 7, a 27 to a 20, I don't know how he did that, to be 18, but we got accepted to be on a Liberty ship the last couple of years of the war, and we're really thankful that the town is featuring that, and I'd encourage everybody to stop by the History Museum and see the new display. It's really something to behold, and I'm very proud to have that in Taneytown.
Thank you. Councilman Wentz.
I just want to update you from Planning Commission. We did entertain some more site plans from the funeral home regarding a crematorium that they wish to put in. Looks like that'll be probably moving forward here very shortly. In addition, the cannabis facility is looking to expand within their building. They're growing. They'll be hiring more people, which is what we were hoping to see happen, and more jobs for Taneytown. So that's in the preliminary stages of discussion, but that'll probably be coming back in the next couple of months. In addition, from Lions Baseball, we want to thank the mayor and council for coming out to opening day. It was a beautiful day for it. A couple of ball games are going on, and so I just thank you for coming out to that. And just to echo what Councilman Frazier said, the History Museum yesterday, the mayor and Councilman Vigliotti made some very nice speeches that were to the point and really reflected the history of the city. And so I thank them, appreciate their efforts there. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Foster, what would you like to share with us?
I'd just like to announce that the candidate forum, or Meet the Candidates, is going to be held on Monday, April 16th at the Senior Center.
15th, ma'am.
15th. I thought that 16 sounded wrong. Beginning at 6:30. That's all I have.
Okay. Councilman Vigliotti.
A couple of things tonight. First of all, I want to remind everybody that Relay for Life is coming up, and I want to encourage everybody to register. I sent out an email, I think it was last week, with some registration information. I'll be doing that again. I want to remind everybody that you should definitely sign up for Relay for Life. Second of all, I want to go ahead and go into the police department report for this month. It'll take a minute or two to get through, but there's some pretty interesting stuff in here this month. So for March of 2019, the total dispatched or generated calls for service from the police department were 403. The total number of citations issued from state, city, and repair orders included 131. There were a total of 12 adult arrests and 0 juvenile arrests, and a total of 83 warnings that were issued. In terms of community news, numerous members of the department have been working extra hours on overtime grants during the month of March in order to help keep the city streets safer. These grants allow the additional manpower to concentrate on certain problem areas like distracted or aggressive driving, impaired driving, and school bus violations, just to name a few. In terms of outreach, Lieutenant Etzler and Lieutenant Costello participated and played along with other local law enforcement in the SGA's 2019 charity volleyball tournament held at FSK on March 9th. Acting Chief Etzler wanted me to point out that this has always been a good time and that members of our department have been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years. Lieutenant Costello also participated in the annual mock interview event held at FSK High School, which is also done every year. This is an event where local employers put students through job interviews in order to help prepare them for successful careers and interviews during their employment process upon graduation. And of special note, there was one particular incident that the acting chief wanted me to talk about, and this involved officers Schaefer, Marshall, Henderson, and Romero. On March 4th, 2019, at approximately 8:30 p.m., Taneytown officers were dispatched to respond to a residence here in town for a reported suicidal person armed with a rifle. Officers arrived and encountered an adult male outside of the residence armed with a rifle. The individual was pointing the firearm at himself. Officers issued verbal commands to the individual to drop the weapon and surrender. These commands were ignored. While officers were establishing a plan of action, a family member rushed out of the house and confronted the individual, disarmed him, and became involved in a physical altercation over control of the weapon. The officers approached and were able to restrain the individual and take him into custody. The individual made statements to officers that his intent was to force officers to use deadly force against him to end his life. The individual was transported to the hospital for an emergency evaluation. A 9mm pistol caliber carbine was recovered loaded with 1 live round of ammunition in the chamber and 6 live rounds of ammunition in the magazine. Of note, no criminal charges were filed in this case, but the acting chief wanted to express that the officers were recognized and congratulated on a job well done. This is one of those calls that could have gone a very different way very easily had it not been for the professionalism of our officers on scene. And so I want to take a moment to thank them for their service as well. And a final note, I just wanted to give my good regards to Councilman Wance for emceeing baseball opening day. He did a very good job of navigating through the ceremonies, and it was an enjoyable experience, and I thank him for that. And that's all for me this evening.
All right, Councilwoman Fuller.
He's like, what? I know April seems a little early to be thinking about Christmas, but I have had a lot of people contacting me, and I have already gotten offers in for donating Christmas decorations, time, money, etc. So we're looking forward to next year. We've got some big projects coming up in the spring, we hope. I'm working hopefully with Jim here soon to talk about running some more electrical. Also, FSK has their Into the Woods production. They had it this past weekend, and then they'll have it again this weekend, the 12th and 13th. I think they have 7 p.m. shows both nights. Sunday, they may have a daytime one-act performance, but it's $8 for students and $10 for adults, so if you get a chance to go and support them.
And $8 for seniors.
Yeah, there you go. And I think that is it for me.
Thank you. Just a comment, Myra and I went to see the play this Saturday, and it was wonderful. I mean, I was a little beyond what I expected from a high school group, but they were very, the only thing I could say while I was sitting in the audience, it's amazing that there's many talented young people in our small community. It really is. I mean, their voices were wonderful. Everybody knew their lines and did a great job. I mean, I just can't say enough about it. It's, I wouldn't say the play was too long, but it holds your interest.
It isn't very long, too. Yeah.
It's long.
It is long.
So, but anyway, it was outstanding. And again, it was a busy weekend. We had the ball field opening we've already talked about, and we've had the museum opening, which we've already talked about. And one comment that I was making to Councilman Wance while I was here this evening was that, in my time with Southern States, I traveled all over the area, and one of my favorite things to do when I had a few minutes on lunch hour or something is to visit whatever small town museum I happen to be in, and I can testify that there's none better than the one we have, and that's speaking from experience. So we should be very proud of that, and I know we are. Okay, in that case, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved. I'll second it.
You got a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.